Girl's Guide to Life, your weekly guide to single life living in your 20s and 30s. I'm Chantelle, the coach, a course of life and confidence coach, bringing singles together to make friendships, connect, and find a place to belong. And today we are going to be talking about how single life can suck. Now that might seem like a bit of a flip in terms of what I generally speak about on this podcast and what I generally speak about on TikTok and on social media, because I do truly believe there is so much to be had from single life. It isn't something that we should be ashamed of. It isn't something that you should feel you are limited by. However, for all the things that it's good for, which is independence, finding yourself, building the confidence to do things on your own and to find exactly who you are, there is this flip side where I can't pretend and nobody can pretend that it is all sunshine and daisies all the time. Now, this goes for any scenario in life. There isn't, I don't believe, a situation in life where there isn't a negative. We always think that we would be happier with more money if we had this job, if we lived here, if we were in a relationship. The truth is that everything, every situation, every career we take on, every interaction we have, every relationship, every friendship, there are things that brings to your life, but there's also trade-offs. And whilst with single life, it's obvious to say, oh, well, you don't have a relationship, that's what you're missing out on. There's more to it than that. And for all of those good things, we have to, as single people, sometimes address that there are challenges being single that some people have worked through and, for example, don't care for being in a relationship anymore at the stage they're at, maybe forever. They are very focused on them and enjoying themselves. They don't want to engage with dating because dating's one of those challenges. And I'm going to delve into not just dating, but the other challenges that people have expressed, the struggles that they've felt, so that if you think you're the only one thinking that single life is difficult, well, you're not. However, all of the people I've heard these stories from, or the contributions that we've had in our single community online, come from people that want to connect with other singles. They don't want to sit there and just accept that that's where they're at. The idea of airing struggles is that you realise you're not alone. You realise that you have people that are in the same boat. You're not the first and you're not going to be the last person going through this experience and thinking, why is this so difficult? Why do I feel like I'm behind? And what goes on? So in today's episode, we are going to discuss some of those things. What are those things that make single life suck? Why are they there? And what can you do about them to start improving them, to start making sure that you do embrace single life and that you can overcome some of these challenges? As Mark Manson says in The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F, problems in life never end. They merely get exchanged and or upgraded into better options. If all of your problems are good problems to have, then you are pretty much winning at life. We will always have problems, we will always have challenges, we will always have struggles. But we're going to make sure as single people that we talk about our single person struggles, our single situation struggles, so that together we can have good single life problems. So here we go. The first thing that always seems to come to mind and in conversation is that you are expected not to want to be single. You are, as a single person, expected to want to, at every given possible moment and opportunity, be finding someone to be with. That it is your ultimate goal, despite everything else, to find someone. And this is the ongoing narrative, and I talk about narratives all the time, so sorry if you've listened before, but it's what everyone is led to believe they should be going for. Most people would have an upbringing that by default suggested that family life was going to unlock something spectacular and being in that relationship was going to be wonderful, whether that's from your family and having a really great family, big family with lots of children around, or if it comes from watching films and watching all the romantic love stories, as mentioned in last week's episode of My Love in the Movies Isn't Reality. There is an expectation that you should want that, and it can feel like it's a problem when you don't. Now, you can still be single and want to date. But also, it doesn't have to be a desperation to date and find someone. There's biological clocks, of course. As a single woman, you don't think that we're thinking about that ourselves. We do not need the added pressure from other people saying, hey, have you not thought about the fact that you haven't got that much time? It's these little things that can go either way. Some of you really don't mind, and therefore it really doesn't bother me, no. And others will know that that kind of thing is looming, and it only makes you feel worse about the scenario. And it comes with some level of judgment that if you don't want to find that person and make that a priority, then there's something wrong with you. That there's this element of, well, why not? That's different. That's not the norm. That's not what everybody else is doing. But not everybody has to be doing the same as everybody else. We've got ourselves stuck in this kind of one-track mind, particularly with relationships. We are seeing more different relationship setups being developed and talked about and going on. But as that single person, that pressure can be also challenging. So that's the first challenge that often gets spoken about. The second one is down to all of the practicalities of being single. So this kind of ties in living on your own as well. It seems like lots of things are made for couples and or families. So if you saw the recent TikTok about council tax, for example, the idea that why is council tax not 50% if it's based on 2 adults being in a household? There's a reason for that. You can go and check out TikTok if you want. But the point is that it is built around this idea of 2, whereas in theory there could be 4 people living in that house. And there are lots of political and justifiable reasons as to why it is just the way it is. However, even when you go to a restaurant, another video I put out on TikTok wanted to encourage restaurants to have areas that could cater to 1 or more people, not in a way that made it feel like the individual is on their own. So some people felt intimidated by having to go into a restaurant on their own because they felt like they would have to sit and be exposed at a 2-person table, maybe a 4-person table, when it was just them. And it felt like to them it would be more challenging. And I was suggesting and talking about the fact that maybe restaurants that had, bar style sections that, could be used for 1 person or 2, depending on what was needed, didn't feel like it was so difficult. You didn't seem so obvious. You could be facing the window outwards, so you weren't then looking at lots of people in restaurants and didn't feel that other people were looking at you. Something like that. And we also have the practicalities of doing everything yourself. Absolutely everything. Particularly so if you are single and live alone. You've got the bills. You've got the DIY. You've got the cleaning. And you could argue, well, with 2 people, there's twice the amount of stuff to do. I'm not being funny, but when there's cooking to do and then cleaning, when I used to be in a relationship, one of us cooked, one of us cleaned. It halved the work because realistically, if you're cooking spaghetti bolognese for 1, there's not a lot more you have to do for 2. And if you're already cleaning the pots and pans for 1, then adding an extra plate and knife and fork for 2 isn't that much. It is just that element and that, I've got to do everything. I've got to do that and look after myself and think about everything. So whilst we have the freedom to do what we want when we want without thinking about anyone, we also don't have that person that you might live with and spend time with that does those things for you. And absolutely everything comes down to, decorating. Not just DIY in terms of fixing it up. I like this bit and I don't mind doing the DIY bit. I like learning about it. But for some people, there's so much, it can feel overwhelming. And the other practicality that is close to my heart that I find frustrating is having a dog or not being able to have a pet. I would want to, but I also realise that I cannot give, particularly a dog, the kind of life a dog deserves, which is being around it enough and having the capacity, because you're the one taking that dog out for walks all the time. As much as I have flipped my life to a more casual lifestyle, I come and go as I please at the moment. It's the trade-off, right? The problem is I can't have a dog because at the moment I value my independence and autonomy and do not want that commitment. Even so, the commitment of a pet as a single person is so much bigger because you don't have that other person or other people to rely on so easily, so naturally. And so all these practicalities can feel really difficult. Number 3 for the challenges, and we will talk about how to overcome some of these in just a basic sense, is dating. No one gets dating like the people that are dating. Even if your friends met on dating apps, even if they had to date for a very long time before they were together, once they're together and time builds up of how long they've been together, they forget. They forget how dreadful it is. And I think it possibly has gotten worse from what I've heard. People seem less and less interested in actually committing. That's what it feels like to people. And so that frustration is there. Left, right and centre, everybody feels like no one's really out there to seriously date. And that is a very black and white extreme thinking of no one's out there, it's never going to happen. And I can understand people's perspective on this because my own experiences and from what I've heard, things aren't necessarily moving forwards the way they should. There are lots of reasons when you look at the numbers and the stats and personality types of people that use dating apps there might be some reasons for that. You've also got a lot of people dealing with a lack of awareness of themselves, where they're at and what they want in life. And you're also dealing with people that are, the older you get, the more life experiences you've had, the more potential trauma points you've gone through that need processing. And not everyone is interacting with everyone on the same level. But dating seems to be one of the big things that makes single life suck, because you can accept that you aren't with someone, you can accept that you need to wait and that you would need to date, but it's when those dating opportunities seem to just falter at the first hurdles, such as if you use a dating app and then you're chatting for a bit and then there's the ghosting. The experience of being ghosted, where you seem to be chatting fine and then just gone. And this not that much commitment to wanting to get to know people. The gravitas of dating is huge because you're trying to choose somebody that fits your life in so many different ways. It's so complex and the odds are low, I really think, when I look at it, to then have people that don't necessarily seem to really be interested, whether they just don't realise that they're not that interested or that their expectations are vastly different from a number of others. I'm not sure what's going on exactly, but it's a big frustration for those that are single and want to be proactive. Myself, I end up in cycles with dating. I will, when I'm mentally and emotionally prepared, will be like, right, we're going to go for this. And it will be about a 2 to 4 week stretch of really going on apps, talking to people, starting conversations. Because the amount of conversations I can have and matches is fine, but the end point, the people that make it through to being able to talk to enough, to actually meet up, to have some sort of initiative to say, let's go out and do something. I don't mind being that person to do it. I have learned that it's definitely a higher success rate to let them. And I know that some people would argue with me about, well, it shouldn't have to be, in my case, it shouldn't have to be the man that asks. No, but from my experience, I get better longer term results if they are the one to take the lead. Not that that's led to a relationship at this point, but as it just lasts that bit longer, because it's almost like an indication of investment and actual desire to want to do that. Whereas maybe they never get asked, so they say yes because it's intriguing, and maybe that wasn't really what they wanted, but they were just intrigued by the idea. Who knows? And people just give up on it sometimes. And it's nice, maybe, for things to happen more naturally. But those, particularly when you're trying to find dates, which is hard in this day and age because we don't seem to naturally meet people in person. The next thing that sucks about single life that leads on from this is the intimacy. And it isn't just about sex. This is what was described by a lot of people as the hand-holding and the sitting on a sofa to watch a film, hugging. It's not necessarily about getting it on. It's about that physical touch, that sensation. And it is one of the hardest ones to address because what can match that? It isn't the same. I appreciate that's going to be one of the hardest ones to tell you what you can do about it, because realistically, there's only a limited amount of things you can do. It very much comes down to another person a lot of the time, and that gap can't necessarily be filled. It's a difficult one that some people would argue, you could go out there and you could find someone to do that a little bit with. But that bit that people are talking about, hand-holding and hugging on a sofa, isn't the bit that you can just find someone on an app for an evening. Yes, it might fulfill it and tick the box, But it's not really the hand-holding and the hugging on a sofa that they're missing. It's what that means. Being able to trust someone enough and be emotionally connected enough to want to just sit and do nothing together, to wander around and hold hands. It isn't the physical action of it. It's the meaning beneath it that sometimes people want. And that, I think, with the frustration of dating combined with the desire of what you want, and then when you're trying to fix it or at least put some effort into achieving it, seems like you can't win. You can't even get to someone that's willing to talk to you for long enough, let alone be someone that would hold your hand down the street and come round to hug and watch a film. That's such a sticking point for people. Part of single life that sucks is some of the loneliness. Now, this is a hot topic because loneliness can be mistaken for being alone. You can feel loneliness as a person in a relationship, a person that has many friends, and you can feel loneliness being single. And I think it's important to raise that you don't just feel loneliness when you live alone. You can feel that even if you live with housemates and when you live with parents. Loneliness is a sense of belonging and fitting in. And it ties into some of the dating aspects and the intimacy aspects, because you want someone to share the little details of your life with. You want someone to share the good news with and be the first person that you tell no matter what. But that doesn't have to exclusively be someone that you are in a romantic relationship with. Whereas I feel like intimacy does. There's something about the underlying tone of the romance and that level of intimacy that the physical intimacy leads to. And the loneliness for single people and the being alone time also comes from the fact that you feel the loneliness and you don't want it. So Olivia Petter spoke about this on the Alonement live recording. She was talking about alonement, that concept of spending time on your own while she is in a relationship. And she explained along the lines of the fact that she appreciated her choice to be alone, and her request was almost like a privilege, because when you're single, you don't get that. Your solitude is to some degree dictated to you. Of course, you can ask friends to hang out. Just because you're hanging out with friends doesn't mean you don't feel lonely. You have to be connecting with those people in the right way. You don't want to have to ask people to message you about your day, to find out about your day, because you want them to care enough to ask that anyway. So loneliness for singles, it's not rife throughout. It's just a different way of having to deal with it and acknowledge when you need time for yourself, but also when loneliness is really creeping in and where your sense of belonging is. Lots of single people are very happy. Single, childless women are the happiest subgroup we have, according to research. Women are better off single. I'm not sure on the extremity, like what the difference is, but they are. It's men that actually benefit more from being in a marriage. That, yeah, childless single women are the happiest subgroup we have. And so they can't necessarily be the loneliest, because loneliness will feed into some levels of happiness. It's understanding that loneliness is a sense of belonging. It's not just physically being on your own. I don't feel lonely now. I haven't had a moment of loneliness for a few weeks, I would say, now. And I've spent an awful lot of time on my own. Also spent time with people. Back in February, might I add, it was big time, because there was other senses of not belonging being there. But for some, it's triggered by not having those people to share things with. So let's talk through some of the things that you can do to address some of these. Let's go back to the very beginning. Changing the narrative. It's hard to do that. It's difficult because it's so ingrained in our society from the minute we step foot on this earth. From the minute we set foot on this earth, it's pretty much the story. However, there's a fantastic section in The Unexpected Joy of Being Single where Catherine Gray essentially describes many a way to deal with people that comment on your decisions in your life. Such as, for example, I believe there's one bit where someone says to her, well, you need to stop being so picky. Suggested response to that person is, were you not picky when you met blah blah? And kind of making the point back to people. I would also encourage having those people that are doing it and doing it well. It's always easier if we know other people that are doing it. because we feel more secure in that idea. The reason that we may feel insecure about being sure about our decision and our I'm single and I don't mind is because we might be the only single person left in the group. And people might think, oh, well, it's because she hasn't found anyone and she's the last one. Of course she's going to lean into this. And it is all that judgment that comes from there. But if you can find 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other people that are doing the same as you, you suddenly don't feel like you're the only one. And it is difficult when everyone around you's got this impression of what you should be doing. But finding someone to almost just be that, no, you're doing the right thing. And it doesn't have to be another single person. It can just be someone that will back you up. Who, when you feel that you've asserted yourself with your, no, I'm actually really interested in my career. I'm not sure that I want children. It's something I keep thinking about, but I'm tending towards the side of no. You just want that someone that's going to back you up when you say, oh, I had to say in front of people today that I wasn't sure about having children. And that person saying to you, and that's absolutely fine. It's your choice. It's your life. You want someone in your corner. For the practicalities, this to me is a bit more of a mindset. Let's focus on things, right? Because, as I mentioned, I love a bit of decorating. This wall, actually, as an example, is a pain in the butt. For some reason, can't drill easily into it. And whilst the people that lived here before did on a similar wall over there to put a TV up, the holes are rather large and it looks like it took some to get that stuff up, and it's not that neat either. So I think they struggle too. Well, I tried. I really, really did try, and people go, oh, I could do it. I mean, I could have a go. Oh, I tried. My dad tried. I had other people try, and they struggled too. Now, there are some ideas such as maybe we need a plug-in drill rather than a battery drill. That's fine. Maybe I'll do with that one day. But I was like, I do not have time to do that. Look at all the things that are up. So, all of these things are Velcroed up with those little Velcro strips. I think it was a great idea. Goodness knows what's going to happen when I take them down. But I'm not thinking about that. I like the challenge of some of the things. I am number savvy. I enjoy finding ways to save money. So doing the bills isn't a problem. Can I keep my house tidy for more than 48 hours? Very unlikely. The kitchen constantly needs tidying. But it is just this idea of embracing the fact that you are one person doing lots of things. And it doesn't matter if your house is sometimes untidy, because chances are it's just you in it. And even if it's not, you can be tactical. Make the bedroom the untidy bit if you've got people coming around into the living room. It's also a case of learning and asking and being okay to ask. So I've recently learned how to do the screen wash in my car. First time I've ever done it at 28 years old. Last summer, learnt how to use a lawnmower. First time in 27 years. It's not a problem to not know these things. It's important to understand that other people might not have done them ever, or are only just learning, and that you can have a go. Now, I also talk about hoping that places and representation can consider single people, such as my Gogglebox idea about having someone that just watches TV on their own, but sometimes has someone come around too, so it's not just them on their own the whole time. But this idea that single life is a normal life. It comes back to changing the narrative as well. But embracing the practicality and letting yourself accept that you're not going to necessarily match the work of two people just like that. And that you will need help. I learned how to do the screen wash from my dad. When I couldn't do the wall, I did go to my dad, asked a few other people as well. Sometimes I ask someone to come around and clean the house with me when I'm doing a big reset. Mum. So, or when I first moved in, I asked friends to come and help me sort the house out initially. What's interesting about that opportunity is that we learn that we have to ask for help. It's one of my favourite parts of being single. And I would say, probably hyper independent up until 25, 26, when all of this started. Because I had learned to pretty much do everything on my own. And I will still try to do a lot of stuff on my own. I go up and down to the loft with no question about it. Other people would want help with that. But you have to learn to get help. Now, dating's the next one. This is the classic. I don't know where I first heard it. But you basically have to detach from the outcome. You cannot help who is in the dating pool. You cannot help who you meet and when. All you can do is remember that this is meant to be fun. If you are so attached to this end goal, you are going to ruin it for yourself. And I've done this, sometimes still slip into it, particularly if you have an attachment style that is insecure, anxious, or avoidant, or otherwise. It is just something that you have to remind yourself of. I'm going to have fun whilst I'm dating. I'm going to have fun whilst I'm dating. I don't mean like fun. I just mean I'm going to enjoy the dating experience. I'm going to enjoy having conversations with people. I'm going to enjoy meeting new people. I'm going to enjoy going to do that thing that I wouldn't have said yes to. And sometimes I do ask the person out because it doesn't bother me in that sense. But I'm like, right, I want a date. I'm going to do the asking because I just want to meet someone new. And looking at it like that. I've done that and then had no follow-up massively after. It was cool to go out for the evening and just have a date with someone that seemed like we were getting on. You know, it wasn't like me shooting a massive shot of like a random, hey, you just want to meet this evening, like on the first message. It's this idea that you should still be having fun. It should still be a positive experience for you. The next one is the intimacy. I know that that's difficult and I only think there's a limited amount you can do. One is embracing any physical opportunity you get to hug someone and making sure that you hug them properly. I think it's like 7 to 10 seconds that a hug is really meant to last to actually have an effect. And that might seem weird, it might seem overly long, but getting to that point where you can just offers you that extra bit. To me, there's not a lot that can be done about that. Sometimes there's going to be things that we can't do things about. We can't fix absolutely everything. We can only try. With the loneliness, however, I think there's definitely a way to make sure that you're looking at that in a different way. When you feel lonely, you feel disconnected from something, and it's often people. And in that moment, you have to be one of the bravest people out there. You have to be the person to say, I don't know what's going on, this is how I'm feeling, and I need help. And you have to reach out to someone. From my experience, reaching out to my very nearest is the most effective way of dealing with this. But also finding a place over time that you feel you belong is important as well. And it comes from those that are closest to you, but it also comes from finding people that are in the same boat as you. If you are the only one in your friendship group that is not in a relationship, it is going to be very difficult for you to not feel like you aren't behind, because it just seems that way with all the people that are around you. You need to find other people in the same boat as you. And this goes for anything, but in particular, single life. Making sure that you know there are other people out there that are going through the same as you. Loneliness is just that disconnection. And it feels like we can solve that by getting ourselves into a relationship. I think a lot of us might do this. I wonder, I don't think you would be able to tell necessarily because of awareness levels, and sometimes it kind of just works and people get by and that was their relationship or their marriage. But I don't think being in a relationship solves loneliness. That's why loneliness isn't exclusively for single people. It's just that we might be tinged with that a bit more. We don't have a choice about when we spend time on our own. Slightly different concepts within that. Everybody needs a place to belong. And so much of this, so much of getting through the challenges of single life is being able to embrace it, being able to go through those things with other people in the same boat, with other people that make you go, I'm not behind. I'm exactly where I need to be right now. And this is my story and my journey right this second. And it might not quite be where my original group of friends are. It might not quite be where I thought I was going to be at this stage in my life. But there's so much to be had at this time. There is no scenario that is free of problems and challenges and things that we have to face based on our scenario. Nothing. We have to find fulfillment in other ways, and I think community and belonging has a lot to offer in that. And that's why the Single Life Be Like community exists. You've probably heard, if you've listened to this podcast at all before, we have the Single Girls Club. That's now been absorbed into Single Life Be Like, which is a fully established online community for singles. So the Single Girls Club still exists. It will still be running the events in person. It will still have a safe place in the Single Life Be Like community that allows women to talk about their single life and have that space. But also there's going to be so much more looked at, talked about and spoken about in the Single Life Be Like community. Now, if you're listening to this podcast the week it comes out, the membership is currently closed because It's new, and we've got to make sure that it grows in the right way, that it can cater to everybody, that everybody's getting as much out of it as they can. However, the waitlist is open. You'll be able to join the waitlist or join live if you're listening to this later and the membership is now open. There'll be regular intervals where you get an opportunity to join. Right now, however, it is paused whilst we have the first 50 members that are in there helping get the foundation set up. Then following that, there'll be an opportunity to join. And this has got everything. It's got the opportunity to connect with others. It's got all the topics that you would want to start talking about, whether that's living alone, solo travel, dating. There's a tell us about your day section, which came out of asking people what they missed the most. Tell us about your day. What happened? What are you proud of? What went well and what was a challenge? Sharing all of that as an experience with other people and giving you the chance to find other people to meet, whether that's connecting with them online and having someone to message and video call as friends, or as people that are in your local area that you want to meet up with in real life, or might even take a trip to meet. It's where the idea for the Single Girls Club came from, which has now transformed into something wider. So join that kind of space if you're looking. Get on the wait list to be one of those people if you're looking for a place to find other singles to connect with, to meet with, to be with, and to find that bit of inspiration that you want, to remind you of why being single isn't so bad, to start learning about doing things on your own, living on your own, and getting through the dating. You're not alone with any of this. Single life is not straightforward. It's not easy for anybody necessarily, but neither is being in a relationship either. Everything's got its pros and cons, but together we go through the challenges as one, and we share our experiences, we learn from one another, and we start to see things in a different way. I hope that hasn't bogged you down with some of the challenges that we face. And I stand as an individual, as Chantelle the coach, as someone that wants to keep challenging that single life element, that it is valid. Your decision to be single, or your current status of being single, doesn't hold you back from doing anything that you want to do. And whilst you can't magic up a relationship if that is something you're after, you can still be having fun and living your life with purpose and meaning and belonging, and that will fulfill you in ways that just getting into a relationship won't necessarily. This life is for experience, so this is the experience you're going through right now, and it'll be nice to do it with other people. Until next time, keep thriving.